Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and to another post-game wash-up review type thing. This one is for Ducktales Remastered, which has just finished going up on the channel. This video will obviously have some slight spoilers in it, so if you haven't watched the finale of the game yet, which has gone out today, please go watch that before you watch this one if you don't want to see spoilers. There'll only be light ones because it's not like a hugely spoilery game, to be honest. But there's a risk, so... So yeah, I finished playing the game. It was really fun. I had a lot of fun with this game, actually. As I said in the first episode, it was a remake of an old original Nintendo game from 1989. So in 2013, this one came out. I've just not gotten around to playing it yet until now. But it was awesome, actually, to see all of the levels that I remembered. Some of them I didn't remember that well, but the animation I thought was really, really pretty. It was really nice, actually, all the artwork on it. And the music sounded great as well. It still kept the feel of the original music, like it was obviously a core part of it, but it was just kind of fresher and a bit more vibrant. It wasn't like, I think the original music was like 8-bit music. So, you know, it was just a really nice take on it. Just overall, just very aesthetically pleasing and also audibly, what's the word for that? I remember. But yeah, there are obviously different difficulties within the game, so I thought it'd be quite nice to just run through what the differences are in those in case you're not aware of it. So obviously easy was what I played it on predominantly, and on easy mode you have unlimited lives. You take half damage that you would normally, so you only use half a heart rather than a whole heart when you get hit, and there are 5 heart containers that you can collect in it so that your maximum health goes up to 8 hearts. On medium difficulty, which is what I originally started on, you still can get 5 heart containers throughout the levels, but you take a whole heart damage and you start off with a limited number of lives. So if you get game over partway through a level, you have to redo that whole level again, basically. And on hard difficulty, you still have the same amount of lives as you would have on medium, and you still take 1 full heart of damage if you get hit, but on hard difficulty you only have 2 heart containers that you can get, so you can't get the ones in the Amazon, the mines and the moon. I think the only 2 available are in Transylvania and the Himalayas, so you're obviously you can take less hits. You can only get to 5 hearts. So that's the main differences on those ones. There is also another mode, which I will never ever see. Apparently, you can play on extreme mode. And on extreme mode, you have 1 life and you have to play it all the way through in one go. So obviously, I can't ever do that. I think you have to beat it on hard to unlock extreme mode. And there is just no way I would ever be able to do that personally. Like, the people that can, that amazes me. I fall down holes and die, so come on, there's no way I would get through Mount Vesuvius or even the Amazon probably without dying once. I would actually recommend that anybody playing this game for the first time plays it on easy mode for the very first playthrough, because it lets you just get used to the levels and find out where things are and how to handle the different enemies without having that pressure of, if you make a mistake and get game over, you have to go through the whole thing again. So the easy mode is actually a really good way to just familiarize yourself with the game without having that pressure. And then obviously once you've done the game, you can kind of work up in the different levels, I think is kind of a good approach to take to it, because then you can just kind of relax and enjoy the game for what it is. Which is why I'm very glad that I did decide to switch to easy, because when I got the game over on the Amazon, I was quite far. I was in the temple area and I was just like, I've got to do that whole thing again now, and I've got to collect all the coins. I've got to come all the way back to where I am to face the boss, which I hadn't even seen at that point. And then, like, that was, considering that was the first level, that was quite a lot to redo, because the levels are they're not like super long, but they're long enough that you don't want to have to keep replaying them if you're learning the game and wanting to just actually see what the game is like. So I'd recommend it on easy. It's probably not something that people would be like, oh, you shouldn't recommend games on easy, but it's a good way to scope it out and then set yourself a challenge of going on higher difficulties, I would say. So there are quite, besides obviously the obvious ones of music, sound, and the animation, there are quite a few differences throughout between this game and the original game. So I thought I'd run through a few of those, just the ones that I noticed and some ones I saw afterwards, because once I'd played the first game, once I'd played the game through for the first time, I actually went and looked up some footage of the original game on YouTube, because obviously there's loads there everywhere and I unfortunately don't have the game anymore. And there was it was actually really surprising to me to see that the original game, you could play it and beat it in 30 minutes. So that's really cool. I'll put a link in of the playthrough that I watched in the description of the video, so if you want to check it out, it is only 30 minutes long and it's really cool to see it again if you haven't played it for a while, or if you've not seen it at all, you can kind of see the differences between the game that I've played and the original. So some of the differences, obviously, the big difference is the addition of cutscenes and voice actors that wasn't in the original game at all. So all of the cutscenes that you see are completely new. All of the very first level that you go into, that's completely new. When you started the game originally, you literally just went onto that level select screen where it said Amazon, Himalayas and all that lot. And that was the intro, that was it. You didn't see any of that sort of original context of what you were doing, you just went and you beat the levels. So I also thought it was really cool that the original voice actors were in it. So Alan Young, who voices Scrooge, actually voiced Scrooge in the remastered version. So he was in his 90s when he voiced Scrooge for this game, which is awesome because he sounded so good. You couldn't hear that within his voice. So I think it's just super cool that they actually brought him into it. And I felt like the cutscenes were really cool because it did just give you a bit more context about what was happening in each of the levels as well. So I think I mentioned it in the mines, I didn't have a clue when I played that as a kid who the boss was, for example, or in fact any of the bosses really, apart from Magica, I knew her. There was not really any context behind why they were there and stuff. So that was really cool to see sort of what the purpose was of each of the missions, and getting a name for the treasure as well, because I didn't know any of the names of the treasure. So that was cool, I thought. So there are some other basic things that they've changed. The levels no longer have timers in them. In the original game, that you were timed, a bit like you are in Mario games. I'm guessing that's because the levels are longer now, that they just didn't bother putting a timer in. And obviously in the original game you didn't have things to spend the money on, so this time where you've got money you can buy all the artwork and you can unlock the music from the original game, so it gives you kind of a reason to replay it in order to do that stuff, as well as trying the higher difficulties, which is really cool. What else? There were some pretty basic things that were different as well throughout, like the bosses. Every single boss had a different moveset to the original game. So in the original game, they pretty much just kind of jumped around. The totem didn't do the rock smashing thing. Magica didn't do all her lava spells that were a pain. What was the third boss? Was the king. So you didn't have all of his people rushing across the screen. He just used to go around. The ogre, or not ogre, Yeti. She was Yeti, I think. The Yeti used to just, you pogoed on her. You didn't have to throw a rock at the ceiling and make something fall on her. You could literally just pogo straight on her immediately. And the rat didn't go green, so he just literally jumped between platforms without having the rushing across and coming out the holes in the background. So those are new, and with Dracula, the final boss, Magica's spells were not in it at all. Those damn spells, although the red one and the green one were really easy. The yellow spell took me a while to realise that I could avoid it by ducking. That's how you get past that. You have to kind of be away from the tooth and duck, and then he can't hit you, which took me far too long to figure out. I was getting very frustrated with that move. But within the levels, they've also changed some stuff as well. So a lot of it is very similar, but there are clear differences between some of the levels. I think in the Amazon I pointed out that I had remembered, and watching the footage I can see that I was correct in it. When you go up the vine in the remaster, you go to the right, but that's completely flipped around from what the original was, because in the original one you went back to the left and you didn't actually get on the helicopter the entire way across. You had to jump across the little platforms rather than just hop on the rope like I did and just zoom across, which was great. I was very happy I could do that and just ignore all the platforms underneath, because I would have been very, very stressed. Probably because I was not used to controls. Would have been alright later on, I imagine. But yeah. And there are similar differences to that throughout the other levels. So like in Transylvania, I mentioned the outside minecart bit was new. The inside bit was originally there already, but that bit was new. The mini bosses as well throughout the game, they were all completely new. In the original game, you only had normal bad guys and then the end bosses. So all of the sub bosses, like fighting the bigger boys, the plane fight before the Yeti, all the bits like that, they were like completely new. You didn't have to do any of that before. So that was quite cool to get those sort of extra bits in, because it did kind of give you more milestones to do within it. And obviously in the same kind of way of that, you had extra stuff to do within the levels as well. So in the original game, in the Amazon, you didn't have the coins. That was completely new for the remaster. In the Himalayas, you didn't have to go and get the, what was it called? The thing that he dropped and the bunnies tore apart. I can't remember what it actually was. The bit for the plane. You didn't have to go get that, basically. So that was interesting. And there were things as well, like, which they took away. So I remember in the original game, and having watched it again, that the nephews were in it a bit more throughout the levels. So there was one in the Himalayas who had said something, like told you about the little caveman guy, and you had to go and rescue him. Whereas the caveman guy in this one had, I've forgotten his name, sorry. Bubba was it? He had a bigger role in this game than he had in the original, because in the original you let him out, he showed you some treasure, and that was it. Like, you went off and carried on with the level. Whereas in this one, he actually showed you through and helped you get through to another area. So that was quite cool. But there are kind of a lot of differences like that throughout. And I did find a really cool website, which, as I said, that it was called NES Maps. I'll put the link in the description again if you want to have a look at the screenshots of the original game. Go and have a look at this website. They're really cool. Somebody's done like a proper map of it all on one screen, and you can kind of see the layout of it, so you can compare that to what you've seen in the playthrough and see where the differences are. And there are quite a few. But that's not that bad of a thing. They've put a lot of work into it, I think, and changing it isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it just means that there's more to do, which is good. The other kind of major change, besides having all of these little bits, is they did do 2 new levels in it. So I've already mentioned the intro level is completely new, but the end level is actually completely new as well. So I don't there was a reason I had never seen that. That is completely new. Mount Vesuvius is a whole new area that you go to. In the original game, once you've done the first 5 levels, you actually go back to Count Dracula's house, which is in Transylvania, and that's where you fight him in the original. So you just go to the same, I think it's the same room as where you fought Magica, and you fight him there. And then once you beat him, Magica and Gold, I've forgotten his name too, sorry. Magica and your rival guy turn up, and you still have to race them like you do in the remake, but in the original all you had to do was jump on a rope and climb up the rope to the top. So they made that a lot harder in the remaster, in my opinion, where you've got the lava coming up and all that fun stuff. So Yeah, that would be a reason why I would never ever be able to ever beat it on extreme. Because man, that bit is tense. Can you imagine getting to that point and then getting killed? You'd be mad. Um, so I think that's kind of it for me, to be honest, on this. There is actually kind of one negative to it. I did enjoy the game overall. There's one negative which is tied to a positive, in the form of the cutscenes. Although the cutscenes were amazing and I really enjoyed it, and all the background you kind of get to the story and the reasoning for what's going on, I do feel that the cutscenes are a little bit disruptive when you're replaying the game. So when you're first going through, it's really great because you're getting to know the story, you want to know what's happening. But once you've done that, you don't necessarily want to see all the cutscenes again. And because it's quite a short game, the cutscenes kind of feel a little bit disruptive if you don't want to watch them. So like in the Amazon, there's a cutscene for every coin that you collect. And there's 7 or 8 coins. So they're not that far apart either. So you can literally just keep getting interrupted in short intervals. So I can imagine that that would be really frustrating if you're just wanting to replay the game and not see the cutscenes, because you've got to constantly stop and skip the scene. So it's a bit of a shame, but it is like, I do love the cutscenes, but that would be my only kind of like, I can see how they'd get annoying if you just want to replay the game without having to watch those. And obviously that kind of happens in every game, but where this is quite a short one, it just feels like it's really kind of condensed into one area. So what would have been cool would have been if they'd maybe had, like, once you finish the game, you could unlock a classic version or mode or something that would just allow you to play the bare bones of the game without cutscenes. Obviously it's not going to happen now because it's 6 years old, but that would have been an interesting little addition, because then people that love the original game could just literally play the levels again without having that sort of little interruption so often. But other than that, the game is awesome. The artwork looks great. I'm enjoying being able to go back into it again and again to get more money and unlock some more stuff as well. So that's really cool, and I had a lot of fun playing this and getting some good old flashbacks to Ducktales and being a kid. So it was really cool. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the playthrough as well. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the game. Did you have a favourite level? Did you used to play the original? What did you think of it, really? Just let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, so that's it for me now. I think I've babbled enough. So thank you very much for watching this playthrough and this video, and I will hopefully see you on the next one.